think all of us know about Moondrop and their IMs by now, characterized by the anime packaging, along with the well-tuned, highly praised releases like the Chew, the Corpse, the Starfield, Arcado. Of course, you have the ever popular Blessing 2, and the Dust collab with Critical, of course. And recently, the Blessing 3 just released. But what about Moondrop's top end? Well, today I'll be taking a look at the Moondrop S8. Pretty much Moondrop's flagship offering if you disregard the Solis and similarly priced illumination. Sporting 8 balanced armatures and being well acclaimed, if only less than its lesser priced Moondrop offerings, only because there's going to be less buyers of this price tier. Let's see if the S8 is all it's worked up to be. And without further ado, let's begin. So for the box of the S8, you get this basically very standard affair of a white cardboard outer shell with a very comfy anime waifu in the front, wearing her scarf and the gloves. Too bad it's just line art and not like a full colored artwork like the Kato's box. But otherwise not much else in terms of writing. On the outer sleeve, aside from this pretty cool line art of the balanced armatures being used in the S8 as well. Now you slide that out, you get this gray inner box with the Moondrop logo in the center. Now this top part, of course if you take it out, it opens up to reveal the carrying case and the accessories box. Said carrying case is made of a pleather that feels decently premium, though it has worn out a bit with my use, and it now looks more of a dark gray than the light gray that it used to be. And in the inside, if you open it out, you'll see the S8s stored in sort of a foam insert. As for the accessories box, well, if you take that out, inside you'll see the stored cable, of course. You get these 5 pairs of Moondrop sort of special ear tips that accommodate the gigantic nozzle of the S8, Blessing 2 variations, and presumably the Solis IMs as well. These are actually small and large sizes repeated twice, and a medium pair. I don't know why they did that, but there you go. Although I wish Moondrop just included some of the mistip foamies instead. You also get here an airline adapter. Yeah, weird, right? An airline adapter. I haven't seen this included for a very long time now. An odd little accessory, but sure, it's a nice little extra thingy should you ever want to plug your flagship IM into the poor audio output of the in-flight entertainment system. As for documentation, you're getting this actually quite nice thick looking little booklet with instructions and I guess warranty information. It's written in Chinese, English, Japanese, and Korean, so all very cool, looks nice. And I mean, for something that's positioned as a flagship product, I kind of expect the S8's unboxing and accessories to have a bit more flair to it. It's alright as it is, but I would have liked to see a hard case along with a semi-hard leather case instead of just one thing, right? And maybe an extra pair of foamies wouldn't have hurt. Let's take a look at the Moondrop S8's cable. And let me just say, it's essentially the same thing from the Moondrop Starfield, just dyed a different color. I mean, when it came with the Starfield at about $120, it was a decent cable, and the blue color did appeal to me. But now it feels very lopsided when paired with the S8, which is like 5 times the price. And it's in this rose gold color that doesn't really make for a good visual match either. Nah, it kind of tangles a lot, I guess. But it isn't the most supple feeling either. In 2023, this cable is pretty bad now, and I would recommend getting a custom cable for the S8, just for the complementing of the aesthetics of the S8 or to improve comfort. This is not really good anymore. And here are the Moondrop S8. It's a pretty nice looking, resin built IEM that has a decent heft to it due to being sort of a filled full resin BA build. The transparent resin, of course, allows you to see the components inside of the IEM, so that's kind of neat. And of course, you have this front plate, which is made of metal with the words Solution S8 printed on it, carved on it, I guess. I don't hate this look, but it does seem a little plain compared to even like the cheaper built resin IEMs that have like hydro dipped front plates, fancy stabilized wood, or other such, snazzy paint jobs. Oh, and of course the gigantic nozzle is gigantic. It measures about 5.9 millimeters in diameter to accommodate the three soundboards that Moondrop have put in here. And it reduces tip compatibility for sure, hence the need for the special Moondrop ear tips. And it certainly will be troublesome for people with smaller ears. The S8 isn't the biggest IEM ever, but it's definitely on the chunkier side, and combined with the large nozzle here means that the comfort you're getting is only average, and it can get somewhat sore or tiring to use for long listening sessions. The Moondrop S8 uses 2-pin connectors, but there's a bit of an infamous defect with it, and that's the thing that the connectors, they can get pretty loose over time. Mine is not really immune to this either, so if you buy custom cables for this, which you would want to do considering that the cable they give is pretty bad out of the box, you might want to try it out first instead of just blind buying, just make sure. You'll be glad to hear that the S8 doesn't really vary that much sound-wise with source pairing. And being an all-balanced armature build, it's also very efficient, and it doesn't take much power to drive, thus most sources will be an easy pairing with it. Now as for ear tips, of course, the S8's gigantic nozzle does indeed pose issues with compatibility. So no doubt anything that won't slip over it is out of the game. Now those that did fit, I still find myself just going back to these Acoustune AET-07s. And I recommend not using the stock include ear tips because they cover up the exit holes on the nozzles. Well, whatever you do decide to fit it with, if you have smaller ears, eventually the S8's big nozzle will make your ears a bit sore and uncomfortable. Not much you can do about that. But with all that out of the way, let's get to the sound of the Moondrop S8. With all of the praise that surrounded the S8 when it came out, it certainly is hard to say something bad about it without the fear of being flamed. But I gotta be truthful to y'all. I loved the S8 at first, but as time went on, I just grew out of love with it. The S8 sound design is unlike the lower tiered Kato, Starfield, and Aria series. And it's also a bit different from the Blessing 2's sort of diffuse field, bright, mid-centered tuning. It's actually closer to sort of a Harman presentation, for better or for worse. Let's go to the bass. Now considering that many full balanced armature builds' weakness lies in the fact that it's quite hard to portray the low end, I kind of expected a similar story with the S8, but thankfully I was proven wrong here. You get more sub bass than you do mid bass, a tuning decision I'm not the biggest fan of, but nonetheless respect. It's as full-bodied, thumpy, and as energetic as any other dynamic driver, save for the best of the best. And there's no weird balanced armature timbre going on or the drivers bottoming out either. Though the S8 does have a relatively short decay that doesn't linger too hard, giving the Slam a clean but somewhat sterile presentation. When you factor in the positioning of the S8 in the lineup and the bass definition, which is good but not amazing, you can't help but expect a bit more from the S8's bass. And as always, Moondrop tends to shine brightest when it comes to portraying the mid-range. The S8's lower mid-range here is pretty neutral. I would argue a little warmth added to this wouldn't have hurt, but it's clear and nice. Going to the upper mid-range, you've got this good presence and peanut gain that I think you've been familiar with a lot of these Moondrop releases. This time with a bit better separation and detailing, with the choking and blurring of details and complex mixes being a rare occurrence. Vocals, they're not the focal point of these mids, but they are the most refined that you will see in the Moondrop lineup here. Avoiding being sort of overly shouty or having weird issues or graininess, and it maintains good separation with other elements in the song. My only gripe with this mid-range is that for how good it is, I just wish it was able to resolve a bit more detail, because most of the mid-range detail I hear, it seems to have this sort of rounded off feel to them, almost like the edge and bite of some tracks is artificially taken out. Think of anti-aliasing in video games, basically. But otherwise, it's a sound mid-range implementation that showcases Moondrop's strengths, as always. Now the treble here is where I find that the S8 just kind of dropped the ball. Something about the S8's lower treble feels hazy. It's less detailed and more of being a bit shrill, and it ends up just imparting this shrillness onto the entire sound. At the air regions, the S8 is okay, but it's not great, but it's nothing particularly noteworthy. And the sealed resin build does give your ears a bit of a sort of a blockage feeling that affects treble perception as well. But this is where I'm least impressed with the S8. It kind of sours the nice bass and mids that came before it. Despite being a sealed resin build, the S8 does well to portray a slightly above average soundstage that's sufficient and suitable for this tuning implementation. And soundstage height is well defined as expected of the price tier. Imaging is also very good, though I would class this at the upper mid-range level rather than within the level of flagships. Technical ability seems to be the biggest sacrifice Moondrop made to preserve a coherent sound. This separation of the S8 is certainly good. It's working out the myriad of elements within the complex mixes with relative ease and presenting it without any sort of blurring or deadening of details. However, the detail retrieval here is only marginally better than that of, say, Vacato, which is like a third of the price. And micro detail performance is kind of lower than I would expect. I guess the trade-off here is made to achieve a smoother, more rounded off signature, as you've heard me say before with the mid-range. Is the S8's technical performance good? Yeah, but I feel that it's kind of underwhelming. And it's not a clear improvement separation from the lower end products despite the higher price tag. Now let's take a look at the next best IM by price in the Moondrop lineup, the Variations, and see how close it gets to the S8. As for the build, I think both have their strengths, right? The S8 with its filled resin build giving a sort of heft and a dense feeling to it, whilst the Variations, it gets the flashier metal faceplate and a matte black resin that looks industrial and mature. Cable on the Variations, though not the best, is still definitely better than a recycled thing on the S8. Going to sound, I definitely prefer the S8 over the Variations, but that's more because I'm not a fan of the Variations tuning, rather than it is any indication that the S8 is clearly better, right? Bass on the Variations is fuller and more present, sure, but for me, it's a bit too much in terms of sub bass. And it's sort of neglecting the mid bass, which in turn makes the lower mids kind of have this coldness to it too. Definitely not to my preference. Set bass also starts to intrude into the upper mid range of the variations, giving me the sense that the bass and mids are just fighting each other for space, rather than kind of trying to work in harmony, right? And if the S8's treble was kind of hazy and then a bit shrill, the variations felt like it lacked presence. Once again, being just dominated by that bass. It isn't bleeding, but it's fighting each other. Now, tuning aside, I would say that the variations is within spitting distance of the S8 as far as technical ability is concerned. And some EQ will probably get you 90 to 95% of the way there to the S8's performance, I guess. So overall, I would still go for the S8 personally, but if you're already rocking the variations, you're really not missing out at all. And I would even say the S8 is kind of being power crept here. Let's go to Moondrop's often less talked about rival, Tanchjim, and what can be considered as the S8's peer, which is the Tanchjim Prism. We get quite different designs with both. The S8 is sporting a more rounded, contoured, kind of plump resin shell, whereas the Prism, it goes for a metal shell with sleek lines and a thinner profile, more reminiscent of the Moondrop Kato and KXS, or Tanchjim's own Oxygen and Hana series. The S8 here sports the whole 8 balanced armatures, whilst the Prism's configuration is more modest, only having 1 dynamic driver and 2 BAs. Getting to the sound though is where you see that it's not about how many drivers you have in total, but it's what you do with it that counts. The Prism's bass is about similar to the S8's portrayal, but its lower mid-range is a little warmer, and that's more to my preference. Upper mid-range is where the Prism diverges from the S8, having this really nice clarity. The separation is also great, and a lively, vocal-centric portrayal. And it makes the S8's upper mid-range sound comparably unfocused and muddy. However, the Prism's problem here is that it suffers from this rare occasion of having this brittle artifact in sound. But this artifact bugs me way less than the S8's haziness up top. Technical ability on the Prism is, to me, it seems better than the S8. Possibly being aided by the tuning, but the result I hear is that the Prism is able to better separate elements than the S8. And micro details, though not drastically better, it is being better resolved, despite having much less drivers than the S8. So I gotta be honest, for my money, if I was able to demo the Prism before I bought the S8, I would have gone with the Prism, hands down. Moondrop products have often championed a smooth, coherent sound that plays well with vocals and lighter genres, rather than going for technicalities at the expense of tonality. However, this philosophy may have backfired on the S8. This aim for coherency only makes the tuning's few shortcomings stick out all the more. And the lack of a wow factor in the technicalities front, despite being positioned as Moondrop's flagship, barring the solis, it makes the S8 vulnerable to power creep from similarly priced competitors like the Tanchjim Prism, or even within its own lineup, with the variations being able to very closely match its capabilities. So unless you can find the S8 at a discounted price, or if you have demoed and absolutely loved the S8, I would recommend taking a look at similarly priced competitors or Moondrop's other offerings, and if possible, hold out for an S8 sequel, given that the Blessing 2 just had its sequel in the Blessing 3. And that is the end of yet another review. As always, I'll leave the links to the music I use in the description. as well as links to my Patreon where you can donate to me so that I have more funds to bring stuff in for review. Don't expect me to review flagship IEMs all the time. This is a rare occasion and hopefully you'll have enjoyed that. But yes, if you like the video, like the video. If you want to see more of this kind of content, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell button so that the videos get delivered to your feed. If you have any questions, anything you want to ask, anything you want to say, please voice it out in the comment section. And if nothing else, then I'll see you in the next video. This is Marion signing